back, everyone, to another episode of Optics in Action, where we spotlight leaders with vision and clarity. And today I'm super excited to have a special guest, Bryce Wuori, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Pavewise. And they've got some really cool technology that's going to solve some of the big problems in the construction industry. I know with some of my clients, engineering firms and general contractors, and even some personal experience with construction, when we're talking about delays due to weather and other things, that can always cause conflict in people and process. So welcome to the podcast, Bryce. We're excited to have you.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for having me.
And I might have called you Bruce earlier. Did I call you Bruce or did I call you Bryce?
You did. You called me Bruce.
Oh, I screwed it up. Well, Bryce, I'm super excited to have you. I apologize for that mistake. Do you ever get that, or is it,
once or twice a day? So no, that's pretty common.
Well, please accept my apology. So I always like to ask people at the beginning, why do you do what you do? Why are you passionate about this technology that you've created and that you're leading?
Yeah, I've been in this industry, the construction industry in general, my whole life. I am third generation construction, so I grew up in the environment of seeing my grandpa run his own company to my dad, and then taking over a construction company myself. So I had a ton of experience, boots on the ground. It's a really enjoyable industry when you can build something and just be proud of, like, I built that road or I built that infrastructure. And it's really kind of passed by a lot of people. They don't realize what goes into construction, and there's great people in it. So that's why my passion is so high. And that's why, I kind of fell into what we're doing with our technology. I wanted to help this industry excel. I seen, and I was actually dealing with a lot of the pains that our technology solves as an owner, as an individual in construction. And I just seen a problem and knew there was a way to solve it with technology. And that's what we're doing today, and helping contractors all across the United States do the same.
That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about the problem you solve. What is it? What is the pain that somebody might be experiencing? What's the problem that you help solve?
Yeah. So like when I had my company, I'm from the Midwest, so specifically North Dakota. We get a short season to do a lot of work. If we get 6 months of good construction season, we're very fortunate. But so we were always dealing with inclement weather and scheduling. How do we be most productive with the conditions and environments that we're working in, and stay compliant and still build a very high quality product for the owner? And a lot of it, what we found was we were building schedules and tracking a lot of the weather and putting our crews where we knew they could work the most efficiently, and give them insights on weather conditions of upcoming changes, because a lot of this work is done in the external environment where weather affects dramatically what you can and can't do. So we would be on the phone, like, with a crew, hey, you got a weather system coming in about an hour. And like when you got 7-8 crews, you literally have a person full time just pretty much sky watching, we called it, and kind of giving them insights on what's going on and what to expect so they can adapt. And that was taking up a lot of my time, half of it really just scheduling where to go, where to be efficient, watching the weather. And I knew there was a way to automate that and even take it a step further. And that's what we created with Pavewise and Ground Truth, is that full centralized platform with that automation, with pretty much text notifications when inclement severe weather, and with recommendations and operations for your crews as well, that are tied to the contract and specifications of that work. So that's kind of in a nutshell how it was created and what we're doing with it.
That's awesome. So what you're doing, it sounds like you're connecting this problem that people experience, where an owner or a Department of Transportation or something, they are in this position of they have in their contract, weather delays and some amount of time for that. But then it gets towards the end of the contract and it's like, why aren't these things happening on time? Why are we delayed? And that ability for owners, contractors, engineering firms, everybody to come together, look at it and say, all right, here were the weather delays that happened. Does your software track those things and provide some analysis or some ability for them to analyze and sort of make those statements about why certain things happened. Is that part of it?
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest features and opportunities that our software gives to the user is we set up our ground truth system, which is a certified weather station on site with 11 sensors that is site specific weather. It tracks from humidity to wind, all that on that site specifically in real time. Every 15 minutes, you can go on and see the conditions. And that's what the engines actually run through, is that data being collected on site. So there's never any argument of, weather apps can be a little bit accurate sometimes and not so much accurate, but we need really accurate data to make these decisions and to understand the impacts that these weather delays had. And we build the historical. So every time it rains, every time the wind, the average of that, we build that. You can go back from when the project started and look at every single day, every 15 minutes, or our engines actually build out into the future as well. So you can look at site specific locations, GPS coordinates, and our engines are actually telling you in the next, we call them impact ratings. So like in the next 7, 10, 14 days, how that project each day is going to be impacted by the conditions that are being predicted. So we give predictive analysis as well.
Well, this is impactful stuff. So I live in the Midwest as well. I'm closer to Chicago than I am North Dakota. But here in the Chicagoland area, we often talk about there's 2 seasons here. There's winter and there's road construction season. And when you put it in that perspective, right? Because you sort of said earlier, right? Like we've got a short season, we're able to do these things, and being able to make sure that we're optimizing the construction time and the engineering time that needs to happen is a big deal. So what are some of can you tell me about a success, or tell me about how you've seen this technology enable construction firms, Department of Transportation, enable people to use it to solve a problem or to overcome some of these challenges?
Yeah, so that we just actually worked for a few weeks on customer success stories, and so they're pretty fresh in my mind. But it depends on how the user is using the software, because one of the unique things that it does is it's a compliance tool that you already have to track your weather on these projects. If there's federal funding involved, you're required by the EPA to track rainfall amounts and log this stuff. So we do that automatically, where in the past it was an individual with a rain gauge on site, dumping a rain gauge, writing it in a journal. That's our biggest competitor, still pen and paper. And like for example, one of the operations managers that is working, and I think they're one of our biggest customers. They have, I think, half a dozen of these out on projects. We've literally been able to take that individual who used to run around from site to site and track the weather and do all this logging, and he can now, he's figuring 1 to 2 hours a day he's getting back in his time by being able to go into our software, look at the conditions. He gets a text notification if there's rainfall, and that's what initiates an inspection on the site to make sure everything's in compliance. So we're giving back time to that individual, and that's more of an operations manager person that's in charge of the compliance, where we have individuals using it more in the field, the boots on the ground, which we've really built it for. We want the people in the field we call it the foreman's best friend, because they get a notification. They don't have to check their weather app to see if weather's coming. If there's something that's going to affect their operations, they get a notification. So they're not constantly having to check this and worry about it. So we had a foreman on a big project, 42 miles long, that just told us a story where it was $6,000 an hour for his trucks and the crews to sit on hold. Our software gave him the data to predict that. We had 2 stations on site, that the west side of the project was going to be impacted by rain. The east side was not. So he literally picked up his crews, moved them to the east side, and they were able to continue working that next day, where if they would have stayed on that west side, they would have been sitting all day. So $6,000 an hour on a 10-hour, $60,000 a day. And they continued to move the schedule forward. So those kinds of situations is what we see a lot. Our main goal is to give not just the contractors the data to be successful, but like a mediation tool between the owner and the contractor. We see so much money spent on litigation between these liquidated damages for a contract not getting done on time, and we found like 53% of the time it's impact from weather. And where if we can be be proactive and see that data and know like, hey, we just lost a day to rain and everybody sees that same data and we can't control the weather, then we work together just to figure out a solution rather than pointing fingers. That's our ultimate goal with it.
I love that concept, Bryce. That's really impactful. I think the whole concept, I've spent my career looking at processes and people and that intersection of these two. And it's so often that you have a process that's broken and people start pointing fingers. And what you've done is you've figured out, you've created this tool that links right in between those two things. So you've got a clean process with great data that gives visibility to all the parties involved and prevents those problems, prevents that litigation on the back end. And I think that's really powerful. That's something we need in our culture, is to reduce the finger pointing and improve the transparency, improve the ability to really execute effectively and make things, just make good things happen, right? I mean, that's what we'd like to be all about. And so I love your passion for that. What would you say is the biggest challenge that you're feeling, or what's the biggest challenge when you're implementing a technology or bringing something new and innovation to the marketplace? What are the biggest challenges you're feeling?
It's behavior change. When our biggest competitor is traditional pen and paper, it's always been done that way in construction. Construction's already not very savvy with technology. There's a lot of technologies used, but it's a industry that takes time to change, because it's just, that's the saying that I hear all the time. Well, we've always done it this way. We can go to a client that we know could be very successful with it, do a pilot, they see the success in it, but they're afraid to make the change because of are my crews going to accept it? Is this going to be too difficult? I don't have the time to do this, like to implement it and stuff like that. So change behavior is by far our biggest hurdle right now, but we have never churned a customer. So every time we do a pilot, every time we get a new one, they find success in it right away. And that kind of really is our drive to prove that we have a product that works. And it's just, we got to get it into the user's hands so they can see it and believe it.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this? When did you first come up with the concept? When did you launch it? And how far along in the journey are you?
Yeah, so I created this when I owned my own construction company. Which was back in 2018. So I developed this for my own use, and for years used it for my own projects, I did a little consulting with other companies on asphalt paving, and eventually just found that there was a void and people started asking for it. So I was like, well, maybe there's an opportunity to do more with this. And honestly, our biggest problem was scalability with it. Like, how do we impact more of the industry with this? Well, with software. And I say this all the time, but like 5 years ago, if somebody would have said, you're going to own a software company and not a construction company, I would have laughed at them, because that was never the intent. And it happened kind of organically, and that's good. But like, we've only been offering this to the industry now for about a year and a half. And we've only been a software company for about that long. And luckily, I had a lot of contacts in the industry, people that were on a wait list and that wanted to do it. And, we're up to over 30 companies on it with, I think we're over 80, 90 crews, 300 users in a year. So, I mean, it's been good. And what fills my cup more than anything is seeing people succeed with it and doing what it's supposed to be doing and helping them be more successful, the industry be more efficient, and all that.
I love the background of America was built on innovation by people like you. And I think it's awesome that you're continuing to push that innovation forward. I appreciate having you on this podcast today to talk about this innovation in a construction industry, how you're moving things forward, making things better for everyone. So how do people find out more about this? If an engineering firm, a general contractor, someone in government, if they wanted to find out about this, or an owner, how would they go about looking you up and learning more?
We're very active on LinkedIn. My personal profile, Bryce Wuori, and then our Pavewise Pro and Ground Truth on LinkedIn is very active as well. We do a lot of updates on there with technologies and customers. We also have our website, www.pavewisepro.com, where you can find out about Pavewise and Ground Truth. And I mean, if you're really interested or have questions, they can reach out to me as well through those social medias, or through the website. You can connect with us, and we're always happy to talk and listen and do whatever we can to keep pushing the industry and infrastructure forward.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Bryce, for your time today. It's been awesome learning about this new technology, and I know there are people in my audience and network who are going to be interested to learn more about this as well. So thanks again for taking the time today.
No, thank you, Ryan. I really enjoyed it.
Hey there, my name is Ryan Weiss, and I am the host of the Optics in Action podcast, where we spotlight visionary leaders who bring clarity and innovation to their industries. If you are interested in being a guest, or if you know someone who would be, you can find more information about the podcast and listen to previous episodes at opticsinaction.com. We'd be thrilled to have you on the show and can't wait to hear your story.